Hello everyone. So in this video we will be building a transaction receipt generator for the Rootstock blockchain. So first we will understand what is Rootstock. So Rootstock is a smart contract platform that is built on the top of Bitcoin blockchain. So it aims to extend Bitcoin's functionality by enabling the execution of smart contracts similar to what Ethereum offers. So Rootstock achieves this by utilizing a two-way peg mechanism that allows Bitcoin to be converted into RSK tokens, which is RBTC, and vice versa. So this integration allows developers to create decentralized application dApps that benefit from Bitcoin security while leveraging the flexibility of smart contracts. Now we will be understanding few of the key feature of what Rootstock offers. So first one is EVM compatibility. So Rootstock is compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine EVM, allowing developer to easily port their existing Ethereum dApps to the Rootstock platform without significant modification. So this compatibility fosters a broader ecosystem of decentralized application and services. Second, smart contracts. So Rootstock supports smart contract, enabling developers to create complex applications that can automate processes and facilitate transaction without intermediaries. Third, decentralized finance. So Rootstock incorporates DeFi functionalities, making it a versatile platform for developer and users alike. Fourth, scalability. So by utilizing sidechains, Rootstock addresses some of the limitation of Ethereum network, such as high gas fees and slow transaction time, providing a robust environment for building and deploying decentralized applications. So now we will be looking at why really transaction receipt matters in blockchain applications. So first one is like building trust through transparency. So blockchain technology is often lauded for its transparency, yet many applications fail to capitalize on this advantage by providing clear, understandable transaction record to the users. A well-designed receipt bridges the gap between complex blockchain data and user-friendly information presentation. Second, addressing user anxiety. So many users, especially those new to the blockchain, experience anxiety when conducting transaction, like did my transaction go through, where did my funds go, how can I provide proof the transaction happened. So a receipt system answers this question immediately, which reduces user stress and support inquiries. So professional appearance. So applications that provide proper documentation of user appear more professional and trustworthy. So this is particularly important for financial applications where users are moving valuable asset. A third one is practical record keeping. For business users or individual who need to maintain financial record, downloadable receipts simplify accounting and tax reporting related to blockchain transactions. Fourth, reducing dependency on third-party services. So by implementing receipt generation directly in your application, you reduce dependency on external blockchain explorers, creating a more seamless user experience and maintaining user with your application system. So now we will be starting installing. So now we will be creating a folder named as transaction receipt. Now we will be opening this folder with any of the ID. So here I am using cursor as an ID. Now we will be opening the terminal. So now we will be installing Node.js. So but as I already have Node.js into my local, so I will be not downloading it. So if you don't have Node.js into your local, so simply download it from the website Node.js. Now we will be installing React into our global by using the command npm install -g create. So the React has been successfully installed into our local globally. So now we will be installing the React into this particular folder by using the command npx create react app. Here we will be naming the folder as rsk underscore. So now we forgot to add TypeScript, so we will be simply adding it using the command template TypeScript. So it's installing the React into our local folder called as transaction receipt, and as we mentioned as template TypeScript, so it will be also installing the packages related to the TypeScript. So first it has created the package.json. Now it's installing all the required files, modules, node modules, public, src, all the folders required for React to get implemented into our local. So yeah, it has successfully installed all the required packages, folders to running React into our local. So first one is node module, which contains all the packages required for React. Second one is public. So here all the static files are stored. So src is the folder where all the files required to run our project and all the components are stored here. So git ignore file is needed while pushing our code to the GitHub. So it basically adds all the files that we don't want to push onto our GitHub repo. So package.json is the file where all the dependencies along with their version are stored, along with the script which is required while running the project. readme.md is the file which is used for the developer for understanding the project, how to run the project, and all the required files that we need to install prior to running the project. So now we will be installing the other few packages that we will be requiring. So first we will navigate to our folder. So now here we will be installing the packages. The first one is web3, second one is JS-PDF, third one is QR code.react. So basically web3 is a JavaScript library that facilitates interaction with the Ethereum blockchain, which enables developers to build decentralized applications that can communicate with the smart contract. Also, it provides functionality such as sending transaction, querying blockchain data, and managing user account. Second one is JS-PDF, which is also a popular JavaScript library for generating PDF document directly into our browser, which also allows developers to create complex PDF with text, images, and tables. It also supports various features like setting document properties, adding images, and customizing layouts. Third one is React code.react. So it is a React component that simplifies the process of generating QR codes with React applications, which allows embedding QR codes that can link to URLs, text, or other data. It is also useful for creating scalable codes that can be included in PDF generated by JS-PDF, enhancing user interaction with data. So now we will be creating a folder called components into the src. So into the component we will be creating a file called transaction receipt. So first we will be importing all the required hooks, packages, and components that we have already installed. Next would be the web. Next one is JS-PDF. Next one is QR code SVG. So here we have successfully imported all the 4 components from the various libraries that we installed previously. So now we will be writing the component which is transaction receipt. Now we will be defining a state which is transaction ID, and the function would be the set transaction ID, and the initial value we are setting here is null. Now we will defining an interface with name as transaction details. Here first we will be writing as transaction hash with data type as string. The next one would be from, which will also be the of data type string. Then to with data type as string. Then cumulative gas used, which would be of data type number. Then we will be using block number, which would be of data type number. Then we will be using contract address, which will be of type string. Now we will be closing the interface. Now again we will be defining a use state with transaction details as the variable, constant variable, and the function for same would be the transaction details. Now we will be defining the const loading with its function as set loading with its initial value as false. Basically, like when initially our component renders, then it will show as the blank and or loading variable, whatever we want. For setting errors. We will be defining the state with const variable as error, and to set the value of the variable we will be writing the function as set error with its initial value as blank. We will be saying for now we will be defining a function web where we will be giving the value of RPC URL from by Alchemy. So let's define it into it. So we need to navigate to the Alchemy dashboard. So first we need to sign in on the Alchemy platform. So like I have already created the app for the same. If you don't, you need just simply click on the create new app, just fill out the details and further select the node API. Then eventually you will be getting something like this. So now you simply have to, so now here we will be using testnet. So simply you need to copy the network URL, or like if you already have the RPC URL without API key, you just need to copy the API key and just paste over it. So here I will be copying the entire network URL and just we need to paste it over here. Now we will be writing some of the functions that we will be needing. So the first function would be fetch transaction details. So it would be like a synchronous function. So now first we will check the transaction ID is not null. Then we will set an error like please enter the transaction ID and simply returns. Now we will be writing a try block into which we will be set loading value to be true. Also here we will be setting the value of error const as empty blank and the set transaction details also as null. Now we will be defining a constant as receipt, which is just calling the inbuilt function of like get transaction receipt with required transaction ID that we send. And like if the value of a receipt is not accurate valid, then simply throw an error as transaction not found and like please check the transaction hash and try again. Now we will be setting the transaction details. If it's true, it will take the value of receipt, all the values from the receipt. Then we will add the cumulative gas used and we will convert it to the number and fetch the value of the cumulative gas used from the receipt. Similarly, we will be doing the same with the block number, which will convert this value into number. Now we will be writing the catch block, like if the try catch blocks fails to execute, it will. So first is like we will be writing a if block with like error instance of error. Then we will set the error as error.message, else we will be setting its error as an unknown error occurred while fetching transaction details. And now we will be finally setting the value of set loading as false. Now we have successfully written the fetch transaction detail. So now we need to write the function to generate the PDF. So we will simply name it as generate PDF. Similarly, here we will be also checking like if transaction details are valid or not. Now we will be fetching all the constant values from the transaction details. So we will simply define a constant and we will simply writing the parameters into it as transaction hash from cumulative gas used, block number and the contract address. So now we will be defining a constant as PDF, which will be called from the JSPDF function, which we got from the library called as JSPDF. Now we will be defining the constant with for setting the page width, which would be simply pdf internal.page size .get width. Now we will be simply writing the constant to fetch the current date. So we will be naming the constant as current date, which we will be fetching from the date function given by the JavaScript. Now we will be setting the font size for the PDF as 16. Now we will be writing the starting text for the PDF as Rootstock transaction receipt with page width by 2. We will be giving value as 15 and we will be simply aligning it with to the center. Now we will be setting the font size to be to 10, we'll be simply giving its size to be 10, and for the same we will be setting the text as generated on. Here we will be writing current date and then page width by 2 and here we will be simply showing it as 22. So now we have simply given the starting text for the PDF. Now we will be setting the line width, which would be 0.5. Then the line would be of 15, 25, 15, 25, and page width minus 15, 25. Now again we will be setting it the font size to be 12. Now we will be writing a function called format long string, into which we will be writing 3 arguments, which one is label, value and y position, and we will be giving the data type to this label and value as string, and for y pos we will be giving the data type as number. So here we will be showing the text as label 15y. Now here we will be writing the condition using if statement. So first we will be checking the length of the value. So here we will be needing its value greater than 60. If the condition satisfies, then we will be setting the font as then we will be simply showing the text from the value, and we will slice this amount from 0 to 60 and will be displaying as 5 position plus 5. Now we will be setting the text and again we will be setting the font. Let's set this as Helvetia, and finally we will be simply returning the value as 15. So, and if block fails, then we will, for the same we will be writing the else block with parameters as value 45 and the y pos, and simply we will be returning 0 as the value. Now we will be defining the y position with the let keyword, and we will be simply setting its value as 35, and we will adjust the value based on the format long string, where we will be passing the showing like transaction hash, and we will be passing the transaction hash and y position and the function we have written it here. So this will call to this constant and change value and updated value of the y position, and now we will be simply increment it value by 10. Now we will be simply doing the same for the address format long string. Here we will be specifying from address, and now similarly we will be just incrementing its value by 10. We will be simply copy pasting the above one. Now we will be similarly writing it for the to address. So we will be simply copying for from, and here we will be updating the value as 2, and we will be simply incrementing this value. Now we will be first for the contract address. First we will be checking if contract address, then we will be just display it. So we will simply copy for the transaction hash, and we will be simply updating it over here. So here it would be contract address. So similarly here we have done for the block number, cumulative gas used. So now we will be displaying the text. Here it would be block number, and here it would be cumulative gas used. And finally we will be displaying a text as Q containing this transaction information is available, and we'll be passing the value as 15. First we need to close it over here, 15, and the y position for the same. Also we will be writing the text as in the online receipt generator with 15 y position plus 15. Now we will be simply setting the font as 10, and we will be simply showing the text as this receipt was generated using the Rootstock blockchain receipt generator with page width by 2 to 80, and we will be simply aligning it to the center position. And for the saving the PDF, we will be simply writing pdf.save, and we will be simply naming it as, let it be transaction details we will write as rootstock transaction receipt. So to copy all the details to the clipboard, so we will add a functionality of clipboard. For the same, we will be writing the function as copy to clipboard, into which we will be adding the navigator, and simply we will be writing the text over as the text, write text as text. So now we have successfully written all the required function for saving the PDF, for generating the QR. So we will be now writing the return statement. So return statements is used to display all the data to the front end. So simply we will be writing a div. Here we will be simply giving the minimum CSS. So you can just adjust the CSS based on all your requirement. So here we have given the background color as 100, we have given the display as flex, we have aligned all the items to the center, into which we will be giving the heading as rootstock transaction receipt generator. So let's write this as an heading. Now we will be simply taking the inputs. So prior to that, what we can display is as like paragraph. Here we can display generate professional receipts for any transaction on the Rootstock blockchain. So here we simply written the input box with typed as text. The type text means it can take any of the string, number, and here we are writing the placeholder as enter transaction box, which means it on the blank input box it will display as enter transaction hash, which value would be the transaction ID, and on change of the value we write in the input box, it will simply call the set transaction function with the value what we are writing. And now for the same, we will be simply writing the button, and on based on button we will perform multiple actions. So the first one would be the fetch transaction details, and it would be disabled, and it would be on the based of value of loading. So initially the value of loading, as we have set false though, so the initial value of disabled, the initial value of the button would be disabled, and we are here we will be writing the minor CSS. So now based on the transaction details, we will be simply showing the output. So let's display the transaction details. So if the transaction detail value are present, then simply display it. So we will be writing it into the div, and here we will be giving the margin top as 6. Also we will be making it as flex, and we will be writing it into h2 as transaction details, and we will be simply closing the div, and if there is any kind of error we will display it later on. So now we will be simply displaying all the details from the transaction hash. So we will display the details one by one. So firstly we will display the transaction hash. So we will be simply writing it into a div. We will be giving the class name, simply inbuilt class name from the bootstrap. So we will be simply displaying it transaction detail dot transaction hash. So similarly we will be displaying a rest of the details. Here we will be showing the detail as from, and we will be simply allowing user to copy. So we will be simply adding the button. Let's first format the document. So we will be using the prettier code editor to format the document. So here we have simply displayed the transaction details, 2 details, cumulative gas used. So for all the details like from to cumulative gas, we will be adding the copy to clipboard button. So we will be simply defining a button on click, and onto which we will be calling the function as copy to clipboard. So as we have already written it above, so we will be simply using it copy to clipboard, and based on it will be the copying the detail as with value as transaction. Here it is from, so simply transaction details dot from transaction detail dot from. So similarly we will be calling for rest of them. So we will be simply copy pasting this button, and we will be writing it for 2 by simply updating the value from to 2, and here we will be writing the value as cumulative gas used, and for this all of them we will be simply adding a logo or like copy text. So now we will be similarly showing it for the contract address. So we will be just simply changing the value to the contract address, and here also we will be simply updating the value to the contract address, and we will be writing the paragraph as trans. Also we will be displaying the block number. So what we can do, we can simply copy paste the above and update the value on the same. So here we will be simply writing as block number. So now we have successfully written all the required data. So now what we can do, we can simply add a button which will be used to generate the PDF. So on click of the button, we will be simply calling the function as generate PDF, which we have already written above. So here what happened, like when we click on the generate PDF, it would be calling the function generate PDF, and which will be eventually downloading the PDF with all our transaction details into our local in the format of PDF. Now we will be simply displaying the QR. So for the same, what we can do, we can simply write a div, and into that div we will be writing the QR code SVG component, into which we can simply display the value as transaction. We will be simply showing the value as separate. First we will be showing transaction hash. Yes, so we simply showed the transaction hash from to contract address, block number, and cumulative gas used. So basically this QR code SVG component will display a QR, and when we scan the QR, it will display all the details like transaction hash from contract address, block number, and simply we will be showing on the bottom, like below the QR, as scan to view the transaction details. And finally we will be exporting the component transaction receipt so that it can be accessible throughout the code. So we have successfully written all our component call as transaction receipt. So let's understand it quickly. So first, here we have defined all the states, we have defined the interface into which we have written the required variable as transaction hash from to cumulative gas used, block number, and contract address. So here we have defined the state which handles the transaction hash input from the user, retrieve the transaction details, loading state for UI feedback and any error messages that might occur, initialize the web3.js with rootstock test RPC endpoint. So like if you are building for the production environment, so simply store the API key and this RPC URL into a .env file. So here we have simply written the function as fetch transaction details. So it is the core functionality of our application and it is handled by this function. It makes a single RPC call to retrieve all the necessary transaction information. So this simple call provides us with the transaction hash, sender address, so-called from, receipt address, so-called to, contract address, gas usage, block number. So here we have written the generate PDF, which is used for generating the PDF. Also here we have written all the content and format into which our details should be displayed in the PDF. Here we have written the return statement where we are displaying all the details from the transaction details. And finally here we are showing the component QR code SVG component, which generates a scannable QR code containing all the transaction details. So now we need to call this transaction receipt from our app component. So first we will remove all the unwanted code. We can simply keep our div with app and into which we will be calling our transaction receipt. So here we have called our transaction receipt component that we wrote. Now we will be importing it. So we have successfully imported from it from the components. So yes, we have successfully written the transaction receipt and the imported it into the app.txs. So now we can simply start. So for the same we need to write the command as npm start. So firstly we will need to navigate into our folder as rskqr generator, and into the same we need to write the command as npm start, which will be navigate us to the port 3000 by default. So on localhost 3000 we got our receipt generator. So here we need to enter the hash, as we have used the RPC URL for the rootstock testnet. So we simply need to copy the transaction hash from the testnet explorer. So here we need to simply navigate to the testnet explorer, and into transaction we can see multiple transaction over here. So we can simply copy the transaction hash of one of the transaction, and we simply need to paste it over here and click on the fetch detail button. So as you can see, it has successfully displayed all the details from the transaction. So here you can verify the from, as here we got the from, address to address, gas used, block number, and the download PDF button and the QR code to simply get all the details. So you can simply also verify it from the explorer. So we have successfully built the transaction receipt generator. So if you have any kind of doubt, simply navigate to the Rootstock Discord channel and ask your doubt under the respective channel. Also, like Rootstock have their own AI bot, which is available on dev.rootstock.io onto the doc section. Here you can ask the bot any of the question you face. Thanks all everyone. Happy coding.